So now moving to ESG, because you're
Everybody's moving to ESG.
and that's great. That's by the way,
I think it is. I think you don't necessarily need a movement to do the right thing. We probably should have done it all along, and we have done it to some extent, just not anywhere near as much.
Yeah, but I gotta tell you, I hosted a panel with BlackRock the other day, and so I have had to learn about ESG the last year, as if it's a rocket, but it wasn't like that, and I honestly think this is a very good thing that it's happening, and Latin America is going this way. Like for example, Colombia is going to issue green bonds next week, etc.
I just hope that it's not a fad. We need some substantive things where you really change things. That's only going to happen if you do something that includes everybody. If all you're going to focus on is one group, the rest of the world or country or city or state that has to fund it or provide those services, they have to be part of it too.
That brings me to global warming as well, because I know you've focused a lot of your time on that. There was I think 2 weeks ago, The Economist had a leader on global warming, and talking about the 3 degrees. That was a dire article. That wasn't a positive article.
Well, there's a study out today by a bunch of scientists. If you really want to worry about something, I won't live to see it. You probably won't live to see it, but your kids and grandkids for sure will. And that seeing it is what you're starting to see now. Every day now there's floods and tornadoes and fires and
the Turkey thing is incredible.
Well, in California, I think it's the second biggest fire we ever had. It's still burning in California. They can't put it out. Turkey certainly has a problem. Greece has a problem. You look at the floods in Germany, where the rivers, I don't know which river it was, but just took out. It's an enormous amount of water. We have more storms. They move slower, which means at any one point in time they dump a lot more moisture and wind and do damage. And then other places we just are lacking in water, and none of the models say we're going to get it back. And all of the science where we used to talk about 2050, we have to do something by 2050, forget about what it is. There's nobody in office in politics today who's going to be in office in 2050.
Exactly.
As a matter of fact, 3/4, maybe even more than that, of the people alive today will not be. It's got to be much higher than 3/4. Will not be alive in 2050. So when they promise, the company promises we'll do this by 2050, or the government promises, shame on them. We shouldn't allow them to get away with that. There's just no. That's ridiculous. With the numbers we used to use for 2050, then went to 2040. Today they're coming in at 2030. Things are worse today than they've ever been before. There was a study out today, the hottest in 125,000 years and things like that. I mean, the oceans used to be 10 meters higher, which means a lot less land for us to live on. And today they're starting to come back up. The storms get their energy from oceans, so temperature of the oceans is really important. And all of this is man-made. There is no question about it. The science is there. You can measure the pollutants coming out of the ground, out of the factories, out of your car, out of the mines, whatever. And if we continue to do this, just the daily stuff that you read about in the paper every day of these fires and storms and whatever, are just going to get worse and worse and more of them every day.
Brazil, Colombia, Chile, Peru, every single place in Latam is seeing the same thing that the U.S. is seeing, which is very, very strong partisanship. I love your comment when you say that one of the things that strikes you the most is that in the cafeteria in Congress, Republicans only have lunch with Republicans colleagues, and Democrats only have lunch with Democrat colleagues. It was different before. I remember that. It was different.
It was, and I think the biggest difference, because a lot of things that we say it was different before, and if you look back, they probably were. not everything, but most. The difference is, when I look around, what has changed? Why is this? And I would argue it's social media. Social media has changed the way we distribute information and the way we think and what we do with the information we have. And so people can influence you even if they don't have any expertise. Now, there were always people who talked on television, let's say, as a medium, that didn't know what they were talking about. But generally speaking, there was some credibility you had to have to get on television, including science and literature and history and all we learn from putting those together. Now you can get on there without any of those things. So you have people that saying, "Oh, the virus is not going to kill you, and don't take any vaccines." And there are people that don't want you to get vaccinated against measles and mumps and smallpox and polio and all of those kinds of things. That wouldn't have happened before, because the only information you would have gotten was from people who understood science, at least to some extent, and we gated that. We made sure the networks had some credibility. Today, we went from somebody deciding what you should read and what you should know for you. You can say, "I don't like that," but you have delegated that to people when you read a newspaper. Because there's somebody that decides what stories are in the newspaper you read and how important they are, how big the headlines, where they're placed, all that sort of stuff. And you say, "Well, I don't like those views." Okay, you can go to another, what we'd call a front page editor. It's called another newspaper, and you can get a slightly different view. That's the way all the information you ever got was decided by somebody else. And they decided what was in your best interest and sent it to you. Fast forward to social media. How do we select what information you get? Well, it's all there, but we have to order it because somebody has got to figure out which pieces of information you get. And where does that come from? It comes from something called crowdsourcing. Mm-hmm. So you say, "I'm interested in," you answer an ad, "I'm interested in Pampers, diapers." All of a sudden you get bombarded with ads for products that somebody with a newborn would want to buy. If you click on a story that talks about baseball, you will get lots of information about baseball as a sport. If you pick something that on left or right wing politics, you will get lots of stories. So the TV networks get more and more compartmentalized and less willing to share. Why? Because it's all done by a computer. And when they say, "Oh, no, we really pick and choose," that's just total ridiculous stuff. The whole network of social media is built on the ability to know what you want and to feed you more of it, because then they can sell you more products. And it's not necessarily bad. You might like all of this, but that's the fundamental difference in our society today versus 20 to 30 years ago or before then.
I agree 100%.
And it's my explanation anyways of why things are as polarized as you described in every Latin American country, and certainly in America as well.
One final one. If you were able to give one piece of advice to Brazilian politicians and business people, etc., how to make the next 20 years winning ones for Brazil, what would you say?
I'm not sure it's true, but I hope it is true that the public listens to what you say as an elected official and can get over the fact that it might not be what they like, but they can sort of believe it is what we need. And it takes a strong leader and just the right combination of votes to get into that position and to be able to survive doing it. And then eventually you build and people say, "Oh, yes, 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 I was always there." But it's almost an accident. It's just got to be the right people at the right time, the right opportunity. They make one decision, and it turned out to be the right one, and so it's up on the scoreboard. And then, well, if you've won there, then we'll listen to you again. And if you get 2 or 3, then all of a sudden you really can predict the future, and we'll ride with you. But I've always believed, tell the public the truth. I tried that for 12 years. I got elected, and a year later, I raised taxes dramatically in New York. Why? Because we were losing cops and firefighters and teachers and nurses and sanitation workers and whatever. We couldn't pay them. Yeah. And I said, if you want to have your streets clean and safe and be healthy and all, and your kids to get an education, we have to do it. The money's got to come from someplace, so I'm raising taxes. My polling went down to negative numbers like nobody's ever seen before. 2 years later, I got reelected running away, and got reelected twice after that, or once more after that. So
tell the truth.
Tell the truth, and better to go down in flames having done the right thing than keeping your job and being a hypocrite.